360.com. The materials and information provided are for informational purposes only and are not intended for use as diagnosis, prevention, or treatment of a health or other problem, or as a substitute for consulting a licensed medical professional. Some concepts presented herein may be theoretical and have little or no scientific substantiation. Users are advised to conduct their own diligence.
Welcome to Ask the Experts, where you'll learn about a variety of life-enhancing subjects. Today we mix up healing and whole food
Thank you.
nutrition with the Natural Health Authority, Jason Eagle of Strategic Healing. And now here's Jason.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. This is Jason Eagle, your Natural Health Authority. I'm saying hi to my wife is on my Facebook page right now. So you're listening to me on the radio. But also, I am live on my Facebook page, which is, if you go to Facebook, you go to Strategic Healing. And you can comment there. You can put questions in, stuff like that. But I later then post those videos on my YouTube channel, which is Jason Eagle QRA. That's a QRA. And so that you can watch these things later and refer back to later. And it also goes to my Instagram. And very soon I'm going to be announcing my podcast. We're going to a podcast as well. So this is Jason Eagle, your Natural Health Authority. You can contact my business. Go to my website, brand new website I just put up, which has a new shop, a new store, beautiful, gorgeous. I finally got what I wanted, and you can order the supplements there. You can schedule, you can read about me. There are links that go to my videos and all kinds of other stuff. You can see what's happening on the farm through my Instagram. And also I've got a new product to sell, which is a t-shirt. I had a t-shirt printed up, and looks like a black concert t-shirt, like a rock concert t-shirt, like black with white letters. And right over the chest it says, immune system, size matters. So it says immune system on the top, and right underneath it says size matters, which is, that's just basically saying you can walk and be an advertisement for saying, what are we really trying to say is build up your immune system. That's what this is all about. It's not necessarily about protecting from getting infected or this or that, or it's about being stronger. You'll head this whole thing off at the pass. So if you want to have a t-shirt that basically says this is what it's all about, which is the size of your immune system matters. I've got a big immune system. I'm a little kid, but I got a big immune system. I'm a little old grandma, but I got a big immune system. And a big immune system is what is able to fight it off, but a big immune system is what's shareable, right? That's the whole point. This is a true understanding of an immune system is forget about talking about vaccines and therapeutics and stuff like that. Be the vaccine. If your body is strong enough and it gets whatever bacteria, virus, whatever, especially viruses, what happens is you will create the code and then you send it out. The way that the immune system works is if you think about, so the T cell response, there's the B cell, there's the T cell. Think about it, like I said, like this, which is, think about a virus as a person who's going through the town writing bad checks, meaning fake checks, meaning there's no real money and they take the thing and they rob you. They basically steal from you, okay? But you don't know it. You don't know it until it's too late. But what do is they take a picture of that person or a picture of that check and they put it up on their cash register, and that protects that store. But what about that person that's going throughout the town? The T cell response, a big immune system, is shared. I'm going to post this on Instagram, or I'm going to, get my kid to go out there with a flyer or like a photograph and hand it to all the businesses. Anybody who would take a check for this person so that they see them coming and they stop them before they even get in the door. That's what an immune system. So immune system, size matters. If you're interested in one of those shirts, get a hold of me. My number is 734-985-5891. You can, as I said, you can go to my new webpage, strategichealing.us. This is Jason Eagle, and that was a long introduction, but that's what it takes. Basically, I'm on a lot of different places. So which means there's a lot of different ways you can connect to me. There's a lot of different ways that you can get help. In today's show, we're going to talk about what's called Vastu. Vastu. Vastu is the earliest form of building energetics, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but let me just say essentially what that means. You won't see it on my website very much. You won't see it. It's kind of hidden because it's a need-to-know basis, right? It's a level of, could you fix your home? Is your home making you sick? Is your home not really helping you? The way that it's built, all of the energy that's coming to everyone lives in an electrified home. Even if you live in a teepee, you still got your neighbor's Wi-Fi that's coming through you and stuff like that. There's all these energies. And did you know that modern building techniques are some of the worst if you could just measure what it's doing to your health? And so one of the things that I do, the QRA, is I can test your body. And I can find out each organ gland basis, which is what are the supplements? What do I need to do to fix my physiology, my body? I also do the mud packs, which is what can I do to fix my energy? If I could see the invisible energy field and see that it's blown out here, like I blew some circuits, like, the electrician coming into your house. If, the whole electricity on the third floor is not working, it's not because those light bulbs are bad. It's because the fuse blew. So like our body, within our spine and other parts of our body, there can be energetic injuries that can be repaired. Okay, now, but what if you are also living in a building that is really unharmful to you? Meaning, if we were able to live in the old days where people lived in wood and stone and their house was grounded and didn't have electricity in it, and they lived way out in the woods where there are no, you can't even get a cell phone out there. That's why third world country people, even though they're poor, that's one of the levels, is not only they eat better food, but their environment is a ton better. And I'm going to give you a bunch of links of people that also will say the same thing that I'm saying. And so you can do your research on this and prove that this is true. But the other thing that proves this is true is because look at the old buildings. Look at the old ways that we used to live. Also, look at the old monuments, even in this country. Look at how Washington, D.C. is laid out. Look at how Detroit is laid out. There's buildings and sculptures and pyramids and all kinds of things. And, all of the capitals are a dome with a spike on top of it. That looks a lot like like an Indian temple. There's all kinds of things that are built into and stuff that's really, really, really old. And it happens to line up with a whole bunch of scientific other weird data about what's going on the earth, what's going out in space, what's happening in the stars. All of this stuff is not woo-woo. This is all real. And what Vastu is Vastu is a term to denote the ancient doctrine. This is really ancient. Vastu is Indian, like India, over in India. And the actual documentation of this goes back thousands of years ago, 10,000, even older, if you believe that. And again, there's evidence that there is some documentation that can state it goes way back. Okay, so a Vastu is a term and is to creating superior building energetics, both inside and outside a building. The goal is to give residents of a building the most harmonious bioenergetic fields to promote superior health, longevity, and prosperity. All the things that you want about what is the problem with your health. It may not even be your body health. It may be financial disease. It may be emotional disease, people not getting along together in the house or getting along in the apartment building or in the neighborhood or things like that. And it's getting worse. And I'm going to get into what we're seeing out in the world right now, especially with protests. And it's not even what you think it is. And somebody knows what they're doing. They really are messing with our energy, but we can unmess with the energy. Okay? In Vastu, we have recognized that there are two main camps. There's the traditional, which is the old stuff. And then there's modern Vastu, which is what I do, which is I practice modern Vastu, because modern Vastu takes into consideration that this old stuff that they figured out, they didn't have electricity, they didn't have Wi-Fi, they didn't have 5G, they didn't have microwaves, they didn't have all kinds of stuff going through. Now we do, and we make up for that, and it changes the dynamics. But what essentially it means is, if you come in here into the office, I can tell you what supplements you can take. But what happens about your house? I can come out to your house and I can test your house. And there are things that I can do to fix your house, like mud packs to your house. There are actual work that I do on the architecture, that I do on the grounds in terms of landscaping, literally I do work outside in people's house. I've done it in the middle of winter where I had to chip through frozen ground, in the summertime when it's 100 and some degrees and I'm sweating my butt off. But it really works, and I'll tell you stories about the people that I've done. And I just recently came from a house that I had finished just this summer, and I was there last year before I had finished it, before I did anything, and afterwards, and you can feel the difference in the house. Tell a story about a house that I had done too this last year, and I recently got a message from them. They said, "We want to thank you so much." Didn't understand it, but they live by a lake and they always get insects. If you live by a lake, you know you get insects, and they always had to call exterminator. This is the very first year that they did not have to call an exterminator, as everyone else in the neighborhood had to, but they didn't, because the bugs were not a problem. The Vastu changing energetics changed, so now they don't have the spiders in the basement and all this. These things that are happening in your house, this chaotic energy, including, again, why do I get that bee's nest there, the hornets, the wasp nest? They show up where the bad energy is, and you clean up the energy. Not only do you sleep better in your house, and your house is helping you to heal. You think better, you feel better, but it also transfers into, it's just a better environment to live in, okay? So the Vastu is a term used to denote these building energetics. The goal is to give that most harmonious bioenergetic field, where Vastu energetics are repolarizing and strengthening the human battery. I'm going to get into the quantum physics about this. That's why I'm called a quantum reflex analysis, because if you really get to the nitty-gritty, the deep end of the story, it's all about vibrating waves of energy. It's all about this interaction between electromagnetic and electrostatic energies. And it's this unseen world. The Bible even says that. It says, how did the world come into being? It said the word, which is a voice, which is a sound. And if you really get into quantum physics, even light all matter is a sound. It's a sound pattern. So that harmonizes even with the quantum physics, stating what started the Big Bang. It was the voice. It was a sound that then different frequencies, as I'm talking to you, you're healing the different frequencies. And as my mouth moves, this is what makes intelligible language. But there are crickets out there. There are subharmonic frequencies. There's all stuff that you can't hear, but your dog can hear. There's all kinds of world energies that are coming through. There are what's called tachyons, these tiny, tiny, smooth, super, super small particles that are coming from the stars, coming from the sun and shooting right through the earth, so small. And sometimes they can actually hit so what we call aging and damage. So like radiation damage. Radiation is one of these energies, these energies that if you saw what's happening, why do people get radiation sickness? Why did Madame Curie die? Because she was handling plutonium and things like that, and she couldn't feel anything. But it was these little packets of energy that were bombarding her DNA and causing it to break apart, which then caused her code to get messed up. And then she, instead of producing really healthy cells, she was producing cancerous cells. And eventually she died from cancer. It's these unseen energies. So there's subtle energies that are coming through our house. So let's get into the quantum physics. Okay, quantum physics, that's the basis for what I do. Let me explain it to you. If you've ever been sitting there, I think I know what quantum means. Let me tell you what quantum means. Quantum physics, also known as quantum mechanics or quantum theory, is a branch of physics that embraces the wave-particle duality of all matter and energy. So light is a wave, and it's also a particle, meaning it's a photon. It looks like little BBs, little packets of light, and it also has a wave form to it, okay? Which is, I can hold the packet of light, meaning it's in one place at one time, a little BB of light. It's right there, I can hold it. But in terms of, let's say the wave, let's say it's like Wi-Fi, you can't hold a wave. It's everywhere. It's this invisible field. So it's everywhere at one place, but it's also all at one place at one point. That's what reality is this duality of these things that seem to be mutually exclusive, but they're not. They're two sides of a coin. They seem to be opposites, and neither the twain shall meet, but that's what makes up the whole of reality, okay? This means that so-called matter, which is material, the material world, it matters, like what I just said the t-shirt has characteristics of both a solid, i.e. a particle base, but also demonstrates frequency emanations, which is wave-based. Quantum mechanics allows you to calculate the effect on a living system by making measurements of properties of the system and by defining the effect of those measurements by the wave dynamics of the system. So this is truly science, right? Quantum physics differs significantly from classical physics in that its observations are based upon the atomic and subatomic scale. There are atoms, but atoms are made out of little particles. But when you go into those little particles, protons, neutrons, electrons, a whole new world opens up, and then you see other little smaller ones, and you go into those other little smaller ones, and then a whole new world, and smaller, and eventually you get to a point where you've gone so deep in, there's nothing left. So the actual particle, where's the thing? The thing is not a thing. They're just waves of energy vibrating back and forth. Okay, the classical physics is the so-called quantum realm. Many properties of systems can only be fully understood and explained with the use of quantum physics. For example, superconductivity, that's that super cold, if you take a magnet, let's say a ceramic magnet, and you put it in liquid nitrogen and you make it super cold. You then put that on top of another magnet. Now it levitates in space. This is what a maglev train is it literally it beats the law of gravity. There's a law of gravity, but if you do superconductivity, now there's no law. You just broke the law. Like, how is that possible? Because there are other laws at place. There are laws within laws, right? Which means there are anti-laws inside the laws. You just have to get deep enough. Superconductors, nuclear and chemical reaction mechanisms cannot be explained using classical physics. In quantum physics, the wave-particle duality of energy and matter and the uncertainty principle, this is another scientific term, of matter provide a unified view of the behavior of photons, electrons, and other subatomic particles. Okay, that's a mouthful, but that basically says the invisible world that seems to break the laws has other laws, and that's what you are operating on. If you want to let's get to the bottom of the story. This is how you get to it. That's why I do what's called quantum reflex analysis, which is I get to the deep, deep part of it. Quantum field theory states that the universe is essentially made up entirely of electromagnetic and electrostatic. What's electrostatic? Electrostatic is, there's another way, like forget magnets, is you can do this with a kid. This is like a clown trick, which is, how do I make a balloon float in space? Well, you fill it up with helium or hot air, right? But what about cold air? When you blow into a balloon with your breath, and then you hold that balloon, it's going to sink down to the ground because it has matter, it has mass. And unless you put a gas in there, that's helium, that is lighter than air, then it will float. But see, your gases in your breath are not hot enough to make it rise. They're too cold, and you don't have a high enough concentration of those gases. So how would I make that balloon reverse gravity? Simple. Take it and rub it on your hair. Rub it on your sweater, and then now hold it to a wall, and the balloon goes zoop, and it grabs. That's what's called electrostatic. Electrostatic means you can create an electromagnetic field where you literally see, like, when you take that balloon and you put it by the little girl's hair, her hair goes up. And her hair actually floats in space. It becomes anti-gravity. Why? Because it's inside what's called an electrostatic field. Now, there are little parts of this all over the place, everywhere we go. So there are forces that are hitting us all the time. Electrostatic is another thing, which is when you become ungrounded. So in the wintertime, when it's gotten warm or it's hot inside the house and you've had your wood stove on with very little water, the humidity's low, or your forced air furnace has been on and your humidifier is broken, as you walk across the carpet, you're moving your feet and you build up the static electricity and you touch somebody or you touch a doorknob and zap, you literally create electricity. Or if you're underneath the covers when you're a little kid and it's completely dark, right? It's pitch black, dark room, and you're underneath your covers, especially the real fluffy covers like those fleece ones, lift it up and you'll see these, it looks like little lightning. So I remember being a little kid going, oh my God, I'm a giant. That's what it looks like when, the clouds are making lightning. I feel like I'm looking, and it's the same thing because clouds making lightning is building what's called an electrostatic charge. And in the atmosphere, in the space that's between the blanket and you, or the clouds and the ground, it's a charged field. So essentially, we are living like inside a fluorescent light bulb. A fluorescent is it's just a tube that's filled with a gas. And when you send an electric charge through it, now everything glows in the dark. And it glows, neon would be blue or red. It depends upon the gases. So we are living inside an electrostatic type of thing, right? Therefore, matter can be considered as closed circuits of energy that are made up of packets of harmonic standing waves, which exist at extremely high frequencies and which have infinitesimally short wavelengths that interact in such a way as to form what we perceive as matter. Now we get into the body. This is the world outside. This is the forest. This is the trees. But this is also you, the quantum energetic biofield, or QEB, right? Is an energy circulation matrix, a vibrating, resonating, high-frequency energy field surrounding and emanating from the living human body, as well as all living fields, right? And receiving a wide range of frequency, harmonizing all bodily systems with the energy field around it. So you are a Wi-Fi tower. You always have been, ever since God created. So caveman, a rabbit, all energy things, because you have a nervous system, meaning you have a brain that's sending electrical fields up and down your spinal cord and pumping your heart. Again, like I tell people who say all this energy stuff is woo-woo. It's not. Like, have a person have their heart stop, call the paramedic. How do they get them started? They shock them with the electric paddles. So literally, you are an electrical field. Now we get into the body of light. Our cells make light. How is that? Okay, groundbreaking experiments by a German biophysicist. I've talked about him many times. Dr. Marshall's talked about him, based this work upon this work by German biophysicist Dr. Fritz Albert Popp of the University of Kaiserslautern, and others have demonstrated that an emission of light emanates from healthy cells. This light is not normally visible by the naked eye, but is easily quantified by sophisticated German optical equipment. One of them is what's called a SQUID device, a superconducting quantum interference device. It picks up so in a dark box, it will pick up when there were Japanese doctors that did this, where put your hand into a dark box and they have these SQUID conductors, which as you can see, every person looks like Star Wars, okay? You literally look like you're shooting rays of electrical energy, electrostatic energy out of your fingertips, especially at your fingertips, because that's where our nerves are, and we are sensing the world. Those are our energetic feelers. So this is all proven through science. They can see this stuff. Okay, this is not normally visible. This radiant field or body of light around a cell or body distinguishes living from non-living substances. Now we get into EMF stress. We are living in electromagnetic fields. You have your cell phone, you're watching the TV, you're sleeping with your head. If you saw the wall behind your headboard, there's an electrical outlet there, which is creating fields and things like that. Electromagnetic stress, or what we could also call geopathic stress. Geopathic stress means geological. So the deep thing about this is, like I'm saying, Vastu is your house sick? Is your house making you sick? And conversely, could your house be changed to actually make you healthy? And now, instead of you not liking your EMF meter, or like say people say, I don't like that smart meter, it does bad stuff. You, instead of trying to get it removed and getting called the crazy person, do this, and these are natural earth grounding things, and now you can transfer it into a healing wave. There's no such thing as bad energy. There's no such thing as a bad kid. It's just a misunderstood, and again, they can act bad, but it's because they were hurt. It's because they're chaotic. So you can take anything and turn it into a force for good. All right? The electromagnetic stress on the body's biofield, which we talked about, this body of light, is caused by EMF generating devices such as cell phones. I can fix them. High tension power lines. I can fix it. Household wiring and electronic devices, antennae, cell phone towers. Over time, even low-grade EMF stress can gradually stress the body's own neural impulses. Over time, cause cellular damage. That was the thing. Did they prove that cell phones cause brain cancer? Yeah, kind of, but nowhere near as much as they discovered that it disrupts the hormones. It also, 5G and other things, disrupt the absorption of oxygen. It also disrupts what's called calcium channel blockers, which is it can block on the cellular level the calcium channel, which makes muscles work. And so one of the big heart medications that makes your heart, because it's really the electricity of your heart that can be messed up, is there are certain drugs that are what's called calcium channel blockers. And if you need that, that's great. But if it's too much, then it can really cause a lot of damage and stress. And this is something that no doctor would really find. They'd see it, but they won't understand it. Okay? Then there are other things in terms of before we had electricity, there have always been energy lines going through the world. Ley lines. Ley lines are, there's all kinds of different lines, right? And there are these lines of energy that are running through the earth that can be helpful, some can be harmful, and there are these power lines that there are a ton of buildings, especially the ancient buildings that are built on this. They are unseen forces in the earth landscape that conduct geomagnetic energies in straight lines. I'll tell you one of them, one of those popular ones that I've been to, I've seen, and I've traced it. I've done a lot of work where you can get the maps out. I've looked at people's houses. I've looked at the country. I've looked at the world. And one of the lines you can definitely say that has been established, and they built stuff on it, and they're using it. There's a line that goes from Washington, D.C., and also from New York, and they intersect, but they converge together, and it goes through St. Louis, through that arch. It threads that needle. And if you've been in St. Louis, you cross the river and then you go through that arch, and then right in a straight line, that's where the Capitol building is, that dome with the spire. But that's where in the 1800s, I think it was the World's Fair at St. Louis was built on that and there's a long park that goes through there. And then it goes out into the countryside, and it goes all the way to California. It follows a lot of these different monuments and buildings, but it's a straight line. And it also goes all the way out into the ocean. And these are the lines that actually connect with, let's say, Easter Island. There's a line that connects Easter Island and Stonehenge and the Pyramid of Giza. They're all built on this stuff, and they were built in a time where they should not have known this. They should not have had the ability. But you can test these lines of energy, okay? So, Vastu is being able to understand what's going on, but then what do you do about it, right? We get into some real scientific definitions, meaning if you really kind of go, okay, Jason, what are you talking about? Like, I don't really believe you. You got to give me some corroborating evidence. Let me give you some good corroborating evidence. You can go to YouTube. You can go on, just do a Google search. There's a man named Dan Winter, okay? And Dan Winter is a physicist, and he used to work for NASA, and he lives in the south of France. And he literally wrote papers and described and showed in particular what's called the phi ratio. Phi is 1.618, blah, 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 blah. Okay, there's phi and pi, right? Phi is the phi ratio, which stands for 5. That's where we get the number 5. And if you look at the way that a human is built, the way that a cell is built is that it literally has this phi-based kind of, looks like a starfish, looks like a three-dimensional star, or what even in ancient Gnostic is what's called I just lost it. I'll come back to it again. But again, that's a starfish. That's where, when you look at that picture that Da Vinci showed, where the man is standing with his arms out, he's got 4 arms and 4 legs. That's what's called Vitruvian man, and the Vitruvian man is showing the phi ratio, which means there is a pattern between this by this by this. If you look at, say, the Parthenon, if you want to get into like the buildings that were built with this stuff, look at the Parthenon. The Parthenon was built on this what's called phi-based ratio, which is this by this by this. And if you follow it, follows what's called the golden mean and a golden ratio, which means everything is built with the exact mathematics, as well as the structures built out of pillars, out of certain materials, especially granite and other things, basalt, which is, these are stones that literally have energies in them, and they're radiating. There are certain granite stones that are releasing infrared, they're releasing scalar waves. And but if you build it in the structure, not only is it beautiful, but what it does is it represents mathematically what life is doing, what the flower of life is doing. The phi-based ratio is what the human gene or the DNA is, because the DNA, every cell inside of our body has DNA, which kind of looks like the double helix, looks like a winding staircase, right? And it has a wind to it, just like when you see grapevines grow or things like that, they curl, and they curl at a specific geometric pattern, exactly the same. So we have the curling, the spiraling shape, which also follows what's called pi, because pi is this rule of how do you make circles, how do you make globes, all these things. A good example of a perfect phi ratio of a pi and a phi is an apple, right? An apple is a toroidal field, meaning if you look at the apple, it kind of goes into the middle and in both sides. That's where the stem comes out, and then where the little green stuff comes out. And if you cut an apple in half, like straight across, as opposed to straight down, straight across, and you look at the seeds in the inside, what are the seeds? It's a phi-based ratio. It looks like a pentagram. It looks like a 5-sided star, because that's what a starfish looks like, okay? But then if you cut it straight down, you see that it has like this heart shape inside the middle. Again, it looks exactly like a 3-dimensional, donut, right? And that's a toroidal field. So these are the laws of how physics, quantum physics, is affecting everything that lives. So conversely, the old buildings, really beautiful architecture, are built with these exact proportions, as well as built with materials. Now, which means you're much healthier. You feel stronger. You feel awesome. It literally gives you more life. Okay. Whereas if you live in a building, let's say American houses are built. Let's say you go to the French countryside and you look at these houses that are, some of the old houses like that are built like that, where they have the White House. Okay, the White House, the presidential White House, is a perfect example of a very almost perfect Vastu design. When you look at the front of it, it exactly has these many windows on this side, and these many windows on this side, and these many pillars, and an archway this way, and all this other stuff, and double doors at the front, and these are things that are not just aesthetically beautiful. What they are is they're fitting the harmonics of energy, the way that its life is growing. Life grows this way. But conversely, if you live in a building that, instead of it having a perfect rectangle, so, the Vastu design is a 1 by 1.7, and I'll get into that later, but let's say you live in a modern house where you got 3 windows on this side, and then, 2 on this side, and you got all these cutouts and everything like that, and additions and stuff like that. What it does is it literally causes the house to wobble, not only on a Think about, like, say, earthquakes going through it. The way that you design a house for earthquakes is it has to be able to vibrate with the earth. Okay, but there are constant little earthquakes that are going on all the time, but there are also other energies that are flowing through your house. The Chinese and the Indian looked at this stuff and they quantified it and named it names that you as an American don't know. But just because you don't know the names doesn't mean that it's working, it's happening. So Dan Winter is a really great guy. You really want to get into the science of that. He will really help you understand and blow your mind. There's another guy, he's got a YouTube channel. His name is Ken Wheeler. His actual YouTube channel is called Theoria Apophasis, which is a Greek term for literally, knowledge. Okay, but he really gets into the magnetics. He really gets into the math, and these guys will explain the math to you in terms of the Pythagorean theorem and all this other stuff. That was not just math for high school. It has to do with, this is the math of life. And when we get into modern building, it's the anti-math of life. It's not harmonious. It doesn't fit, all this other stuff. If you want to also do a little bit more research in terms of Dr. Medici, MediciEnterprises.com, he talks a lot about, like, say, if you want to heal, let's say you got a person who's got a lot of pain or dealing with cancer or all kinds of other stuff, right? And they've done everything, and he suggests go to these places. There are literally places in the world. Big Sur is a perfect example where the earth is meeting the ocean, and it's at the places where there's lots of these rocks, these granite rocks, and because of the salt water, in the early morning when you're in these places, like in Big Sur and places in Italy and other places, when you're there early in the morning, you see this mist, especially when the sun is coming through, and you can feel it. Or these places where these rock caves are. They are super powerful. Places in Costa Rica. There are places here in Michigan. There are places all over the place where you can go and you definitely feel the energies. There are certain places where you can camp, go out and camp and sleep on the ground. And this is one of these things that really heals people. And why? Not just because they are just taking a vacation, because there are principles, there are unseen principles of this quantum world that we're living in, and they are batteries. If your battery starts to run low, how do you charge your battery? Okay? So the Vastu is basically, this. Now, let me also say there's another term that other people have heard before, and that's what's called Feng Shui. Feng Shui is really the grandchild of Vastu. Feng Shui is you already built the house. Now, where do you put the furniture? And again, there are total experts in Feng Shui in terms of, and again, you can take a person who's non-Feng Shui, which is just clutter everywhere, have a Feng Shui person come in and organize things, and just looking at it, you go, oh, whew, boy, I feel better. Let alone working in that place, let alone having a kitchen where all of that energy goes into the food. These things matter. But Vastu is number one, you built your house, you built it wrong. How could I help you? So I go to people's houses. Sometimes I'll remotely have them send me pictures. They'll have them send me the drone footages, or I can look it up on Google Maps and stuff like that. I'll tell you, you want to do some Google research on some of the buildings that have, who knows who's doing this. Look at Bill Gates' house, multiple houses. I have pictures. I've done the drone footage type of stuff where it's out there. You can see it. I didn't hire a drone, but Oprah's house and Trump's house and all of these people, they have built this stuff into their property. It's not just the house, it's the whole grounds. And if you look at it, it's the way that it's built and the way where the pool is and where the water, there's high levels of stuff. So later in the show, I'm going to talk to you about, okay, what's the ideal? The ideal is why don't you build the house right in the first place? And the real skinny of this is I'm trying to help you fix what we got. But the ultimate fix is, let's take a good example of people worrying about what's happening in these cities, right? Are my city's going to get overrun? And let me tell you something that I've learned is there is a correlation between the cities where these riots are going on. There are protests, but the ones that are riots where they're out there and breaking stuff and yelling and chanting and all kinds of stuff, There's a correlation. These are the cities where there are universities right under where these people are walking. There's a guy, his name is Quinn Michaels on YouTube. He exposed this. And what it is they are doing dark matter research. They're doing dark energy research because what noises, what loud shouting and chanting and people walking on top of this, it generates energy. And underneath there are physics labs that have little smaller large hadron colliders and things like that. And they are essentially using this chaotic energy, this shouting. You're essentially hitting a gong, or you're hitting a triangle, gong, 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 by all of these people out there. And on one surface, it's what we think it is. But on the other surface, it's creating, just think about the physics of it. It's literally creating these vibration of energies that's going right into the ground, that's into the whole atmosphere. And they could have machines that are hooked up to that are literally using it to mine energy and speed up their dark energy for God knows what they're doing. But I can tell you that's what's happening. This is the dark side of what Vastu could be, okay? So, but again, is what do I do with this? I'll give you a couple other good examples of where you can see these things. If you notice on my YouTube, there's a picture right here. Okay, that's downtown Detroit. And I've done the work where I've gone through downtown Detroit and I've used the testing, this QRA testing, but you could just look with your naked eyes. Let's say go to Hart Plaza. What is Hart Plaza? And there's a bunch of YouTube videos that go into, like, what is that big circle there? It looks like a Stargate. What is this twisting tower that looks like a, what is it called? An obelisk. And it's built, it almost kind of looks like Egypt. It's modern architecture, but it looks like Egyptian. These are energy lines, and these things are built to do stuff. And on an energetic level, they're not just architecture. They are very powerful devices, because if you really understand how quantum physics works, is all you have to do is entrain energy. And again, these are places where it's a park where they bring crowds in and they do concerts there and all kinds of other stuff. And these things literally generate energy and then send it out into the atmosphere. If you look at a lot of tops of buildings, you'll see all these pyramids and stuff anywhere. Good example is, like I said, St. Louis. There's a whole bunch of buildings that you can see. There's some like these stuff that looks like Egyptian type of architecture stuff, right? That's starting to come back. If you go back into, let's say, Greek revival, why did they have the columns and pillars? It's because especially the old columns and pillars that are made out of granite and things like that, the weight of the roof is squeezing, putting pressure on these crystals, which is releasing what's called piezoelectricity. It's literally producing a charge. So this building, you can go up with a galvanic meter and basically touch the granite building, and it's like the meter goes up because the building itself is generating energy. Washington, D.C., there's a perfect example of where you see, for instance, where the Washington Monument, it's on a straight line, and you can follow that line. And like I said, you can follow that line all the way across the ocean, all the way across over into Europe, and it lines up with all of these other things that go all the way around the world. And, you know, these are generations. These are hundreds of years apart from each other. Why did they put them there? What's going on? Stonehenge, these other types of things, is they are all on these lines, and then they're scattered throughout the country and all over the place. The other thing is that you can see that there's a whole bunch of very, very important buildings like Westminster Abbey. These things are built on top of, because if you understand what's going on in the world, if you have, let's say, above a building, or let's say a walkway, but underneath that is let's say a river, and it's a river that's moving in this direction. Water moving through rock generates electricity, and it generates electromagnetic fields. And then let's say you have where an area, which is, these are called dew ponds and things like that, that literally it comes in circles and it spirals around. Just like if you see a river above ground, there are underground rivers. And these underground rivers, if you build on top of them. So lo and behold, Westminster Abbey, there's people that did very, very sophisticated research of how the water, and if you see how Westminster Abbey is built, it looks like a cross. It literally looks like a cross. Well, they built that structure where those crosses are. If you go down underneath there, now they didn't make the water there. This is naturally how the water makes out a sign of a cross. It comes in and it circles in these areas and circles and then it goes out, right? So they sense the energy and they built on top of these things in their PowerPoints. Okay, so these things are all over the place. So what can we do to fix that? Well, there's still Dan Winter. Let me tell you this too. He goes into, there's a whole bunch of people have always wondered, okay, why do the tornadoes always hit the trailer park? Why do they take out the trailer parks? You know, they're built on this side of the town. They wipe out the trailer because the electrostatic energies of metal boxes, especially aluminum. Aluminum is really, really bad. The earth don't like aluminum energies because it's non-magnetic. It's actually, you can't magnetize it. Gold and silver is affected by electromagnetic fields. That's why copper is affected by electromagnetic fields. Steel and iron and all these other things. But wrap a building in aluminum and live inside there, what happens is it causes such a geopathic stress that literally the planet doesn't like it. It's pain. It's pain to it. And again, if you understand how electromagnetic energies work, it's like a mosquito. It wants to wipe off. Whereas the really stable houses, there are also places in the planet where a tornado has never hit, where a hurricane has come inland, but before it comes here, it goes away. And again, these old buildings, old cathedrals and things like that. Yeah, they may burn down, but they don't get hit by these things because the earth energies that these things are built on are very, very strong. So, like I said, I have all these examples of when I've gone out to people's houses. And some people, they're so sick and we've done everything and nothing else works. And what we found out, it's their house. They're living in a house. A good example is over in Europe, over in Sweden. Oh, okay, let me go back to what Dan Winter was saying. Okay, so what Dan Winter was saying too is that's true, which is metal buildings. Now think of a hospital where you want to heal people, but it's built out of all metal. And then you get into this next step, which is in Europe, it's an L-shaped house. They call it the cancer house, meaning if you have a house where it has a wing and it looks like an L, think about that, where that empty space is. That's an empty space. And the whole rectangle of the building is like, I'm unfinished. And the energies that are coming through there are very chaotic and very unstable. And it literally weakens the people that live in there. And so, like, for instance, and again, this can all be proven too, and Dan Winter talks a lot about this, which is here's what the rule should be. If you're an architect for, let's say, a school or let's say a hospital, first of all, you should be able to prove that that building doesn't weaken your people and it doesn't kill people and it actually heals people. How can you test that? What you do is you build a model, and you can even, like, architects build it out of these, like, paper models. You can build like a paper model of that exact shape. And it can be made out of wood or it could be made out of the same materials that we'd use, but it's just a small model. But what you do is then you take a seed, any seed, a broccoli seed, a grass seed, whatever, and put it inside that little model of a building and try and germinate it. Just put water on it, put it in some dirt or put it in a paper towel and add water to it. And if it's a live seed, it will germinate, right? Okay, shouldn't affect its germination rates. But what you find out is that really unhealthy buildings, a seed will not germinate. But if you tweak the design until it becomes more, and then it will germinate a seed. So a healthy building, a healthy, what's called footprint, will actually add life to. A unhealthy footprint will steal. Now, let's say I live in that L-shaped building. What do? Well, I can come out to your house and use natural materials. I'm using specific types of granite and basalt, and I'm burying it into the ground at very specific points, which is essentially taking, as the energies are hitting your house or hitting those rocks, what they're doing is sending these restored energies, and that's also the energies that are coming out of your house. Again, if you really want to get into the science, there's real science behind this. And so I can help to fix that house, right? Now, like I said, people that are dealing the real deep issue, which is, I don't want this to happen in my city. It's going to happen in your city. Bad stuff is happening in your city. And I can help you. Let's say you live in a city. I've done apartment buildings and other things like that. And I can help it, but I can't really 100% fit. You know what would 100% fix it? Move out to the country. People should really, so I'm going to speak to our highest and best now, which is, I also do this, which is I help people to design a home from the very beginning. And the very beginning is where do I build it? What part of land do I build it? Where do I situate the house on that land? Do I make sure I have enough square footage where my house is not too close to another house? There are all these different rules. And so, when we get into it, is ultimately, my thing is like people go, I'm never going to be able to build a house like that. Don't say that. You don't know that you're not going to live long enough. And how do you know that your unhealth is limiting much of your, what you would call, progress? And again, your best is still not even the best. So shoot for the highest. And like I would say to people, which is even just sociologically, start getting prepared to get out of the cities. Again, the cities are where the problems are going to happen. If you have to, okay, fine. But, if you really want your best, you really want to live on a piece of property where you have your own water, where you have your own food, where you have enough space, where the land is good, where the building is good. The ideal is if you're going to build a building, it would be this. This ratio of it starts with a 1 by 1.7, which would be, let's say it's 50 feet wide. How long is it? It's 50 by 80 feet. If you do the math, that is a 1 by 1.7. And then you can change the ratios up for that. But it starts off with building a nice, beautiful footprint. Then it also goes into, then the ideal plot size, which is there should be at least three widths between that house and another house, and another three lengths between. So a lot of space around a house. That would be, if you could have your highest and best, that's what it would be, okay? So 50 by 85 should be at least 350 foot wide. That's the plot, okay? And at least 605 feet long. So the long side and the short side should have that much space around you. It should be level, because if there's any slopes and stuff like that, then there are slopes that are coming off and energy is being pulled away from your. So literally, ideally, it's a pretty level up to that width around your house, and it only has about a 3% grade, right? The quality of the soil. A lot of buildings are built on, if you look at the soil that it's built on, it's especially old subdivisions, stuff like that. The ground is horrible. And if you if you wanted to plant plants by your building, you start digging, you find all kinds of junk and all kinds of other stuff. The dimensions of that house, 1 by 1.7, there's all these different things that, where do you put the windows? Where do I put stairways? Where do I put hallways? All these different things. Where do I put my bed? Which way do I sleep with my head in my bed? I can tell you there's all these great books that were written, especially in Europe, all these studies on all different types of people, like children, two twins, and they were sleeping in a bedroom, and one was always complaining of a belly ache, but then would sleep all curled up in one corner of the crib because they were two twins. There was a person who does this energy work, went to the house and found out that there are these lines of energy that are running through the house, and it was right at that corner, right where the little kid. And once they made some changes, moved the bed in the right place, now that little kid was it. So it was like all night long, this kid was being poked, right? Do you feel like when you walk into a room that there's just or let's say you work for a company and they made some changes, they put some new furniture in, or they upgraded the Wi-Fi. You're not crazy that you feel like something happened. I just don't feel right. I've known a ton of people that had to literally quit that company because that company was making them sick because of all the energy and all this other stuff. So what Vastu is I'm able to look at your energetic field and where you live and be able to do what's called remediation. I can fix the things in the house. Again, you thought healthy was one thing. There's levels of health. There are levels of health. Just like there's a level of we worked on your body, but did we work on your mind, right? Did we work on your emotions? Sometimes you are emotional, like your memories. You can't escape. That's another thing. Take a person with the, like I said, a chip on their shoulder, and you can see it on their body. And so, but where is that? That's in a person's energetic field, right? And there are some buildings in terms of that. I can tell people that, for instance, have had a lot of mental disturbances. People where, they thought they might have been schizophrenic and they've been on all kind, or bipolar or something like that. And we changed the energy in their house and it just made all the difference in the world. Suddenly they were able to sleep. Suddenly they were able to, or gradually they got better. And it was one of these things that no one else would have found because, we don't, in modern world, we don't think of that. But oh, yeah. Let me, I've got a person who's calling in. Let me take this in my last few minutes here. So go ahead. Hello there. Hey, caller. Yes. Yeah, hi, Daniel. Hi. I just got maybe about a few more minutes, so let's go right ahead. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yep. Yes. Yes. Correct. Yes, yeah, there are places like that. I mean, you go over to Europe, like the old baths, where in Italy, some of the Federico Fellini films was about that. These are true places that have been there since, the Egyptian or Roman times, and they're still there. And yes, it's the minerals that are coming out of the water, but it's also how they built it. It's this whole energetics of, and if you take, let's say, a drone footage over that building that you're talking about, as well as like the baths and place like that, you see that they're arranged almost in like a rose pattern. There's all these geometric type of things, or what's called the flower of life. And these, once you get on the grounds, you're like, I don't know what it is, but this just feels awesome and amazing. And you do heal just by being there, and it charges your battery. So thank you for calling and confirming this, because, and there are places like this all over the world. Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. And so that's what I do is you maybe can't live there, but your home, could I give you 2% of that? Could I give you 5%? And that would be enough for you to really change your life. And so that's part of what it really does. It really does. Well, thank you so much for calling. And we've talked a number of times on the phone, and I really appreciate you as a listener and even a caller here. So thanks for calling. I appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye. Yeah, so that's the thing, is that you could go all over the place. There are all kinds of places. Now, there's another thing that's an opposite principle of this, okay? Let's say you go to, because I've done testing in these places, go to, let's say, our state capitol, which is built with some of these energetics, but they're actually horrible energetics for you. So essentially what it is like you're just Joe Schmo person. You walk into the building with, let's say, your legal case. You walk in and you feel nervous and you get suddenly dumb and you go, what was I here for? That's designed on purpose. So you can design these things to manipulate energies and dole out energy to this and take energy and literally vampirically suck energy off of this. This can all be fixed. It can all be fixed so that it can be all turned for good. But it's a level of knowing what to do and how to do it. And it's based in the physical world, and there are principles behind that. And so that's what I do. If you're interested, give me a call. This is Jason Eagle, your natural health authority. I can also fix cell phones and things like that. Like you got your grandkids sitting on a laptop, iPad things, and it can actually be damaging their reproductive organs, and there you're not going to have grandkids. This has all been verified, but there are things that we can do to fix it. So till next time, this is Jason Eagle, your natural health authority. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Ask the Experts with Jason Eagle of Strategic Healing. Jason,
All right, you're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
healthier life naturally. As a certified practitioner in multiple healing modalities, Jason creates a finely tuned and highly personalized program just for you that will get you back to living your best life. Get started today by calling 734-985-5891 to make your appointment, or go online to strategichealing.us. Strategic Healing is located at 2545 North Opdyke Road, Suite 106A in Auburn Hills. Ask the Experts with Jason Eagle of Strategic Healing can be heard every Wednesday at 1 p.m. right here on WRDT, the Word Station.
AM 560 is Detroit's Word Station. WRDT Monroe, Detroit, and WRDT 8.
Okay, Facebook people, thank you. Loretta Bridge, thank you so much. She said you're a gift from God. We're all a gift from God. I really appreciate that, but I'm glad that it's resonating with you, help you. Jennifer Coker, hi Jason, and watched some old episodes this week. Good, I'm glad. It's good to see you. Amy, my sister-in-law, hi, it's good to see you, sweetheart. Shannon, yeah, and Katie, I had to say Star Wars again. I know, we'll have to. Katie was talking about how Shannon turned it into a drinking game this last video, which is, the Gut Wars, which is every time Jason says Star Wars, take a drink. It was a juice or it was something good, healthy, but that's funny. That is a lot of my upbringing and a lot of where my mind is. And it makes a lot of sense too. So thank you, everybody. It's so good to see you. I will see you next week. Okay. And again, if you're interested in the immune system, size matters. It's kind of funny, but it's true. So thank you. Bye-bye.